What we'll be talking about today is who is the citizen designer and why do we need them and how they're playing an important role in today's ecosystem. And then finally, we'll talk about how do we empower the citizen designer. We'll discuss what we mean by empowering and then proceed with a short demo of the citizen designer platform. Before we get into the topic of citizen designer, let's go ahead and discuss where we started with software and where we are today. So today, we're building client server, worldwide web applications, and mobile applications, um, where companies are hiring, computer scientists and consulting companies to code software to even manage the most simplest tasks. We've had, and often we're experiencing long timelines for delivered capabilities, and the solutions that we built were not necessarily meeting all of the needs. And that's where no code, low code capabilities address some of these issues. And we're here to bring you to the future of where platforms need to be. So these tools now are jam-packed with features. They're all under a single cloud environment. They're designed not necessarily for the computer scientist, but what we like to call the citizen designer or business users. Because today, we're focusing on velocity and delivering with speed and reducing that time to deployment. We're looking for platforms to eliminate a lot of the mundane tasks that have to be completed regardless of the type of application that you're building. So this way we can focus on just applying the business processes, the policies, and the procedures through configurations and putting that out and deploying in a very quick manner. As a matter of fact, some of the applications that we at eTRANSERVICES have been built with zero code, and even the most robust applications, we're estimating around 3% code. So it's a complete solution that can be used by what we call citizen designers. So let's first talk a little bit about where we are today and the art of the possible. Business users have longed for new and more modern ways to accomplish their work. These legacy systems continue to age, and many business users are crafting workarounds using Excel, Microsoft Word, and all these other office tools to accomplish their goals. Needless to say, chock full of issues and obstacles and inefficiencies. It's a difficult way of conducting your business. Now, I'm sure as business users, many of you have seen or know that you're experiencing at least one of these, if not all of these items in your organization. So we talk about things like being weighted down by these legacy systems, the inability to collaborate on a platform with your users, and having data in multiple locations, even though you have to pull that together to make good, sound business decisions based on data. And then, of course, it just leads to frustration of data, frustration for users. So this is what we're looking for: real-time insight, being able to view data either one record at a time, one field at a time, or summary data in a dashboard as soon as the data gets added into the system or updated into the system. Or having workflows that automate the manual handoffs, things like applications and invoice and other items that might require handoffs and multiple levels of approval to proceed through the process. And then, of course, integrating data, consolidating, visualizing, and then pulling that data in to make a decision. And this is regardless of whether it is a legacy system, a mainframe system, an ERP, or even a modern day software solution. Oftentimes, we need to integrate data. So these thoughts can become reality, and this is where the citizen designer comes to play. So let's get started with a little bit of a definition of the citizen designer. The designer, they are the domain experts. They are the staff managers executing the business processes. They're finance managers, budget analysts, grants managers, logistics staff, but these are the people that are executing the business. They're administering these programs, they're executing, and they're basically running the process. These are the business subject matter experts. But most importantly, in our context, they are the staff that's most knowledgeable on where improvements need to be made, and where the inefficiencies exist. Today's business users are very sophisticated and they're very well aware of all the possibilities as they see technology permeate their entire lives, right? Today, we're using smartphones to routinely purchase items from Amazon.com. Our children are using virtual meetings for learning. With business processes, they know where the automation is needed. They know that they need to improve the user experience, and they need to improve access to data, as those are the ones that are executing the business process. Now, these are the individuals that we're targeting for citizen designers. You don't need to be a programmer. You don't need all that expertise that we learn in school, but we just need that passion to improve. So the benefits of the citizen designers can be really found everywhere. It has the potential to unleash, incredible productivity and gains across an organizations where we can build forms and applications and projections and use data in a better way. Now, one of the things that if you're in our industry, you often hear the term, you'll notice that I'm using the term citizen designer. And a lot of the industry is using what they call citizen developers. Well, why does eTRANSERVICES and why do we use citizen designer? And the reasoning is because we believe these platforms to support the citizen designer, these business users, they should not be coding. So that's why when I think of citizen developer, I think of coding software. So the designer is more involved in applying the business rules, the policies, and the procedures, and orchestrating a business process on top of the platform, and spending very little time assembling the solution. So that's why we use citizen designer as opposed to citizen developer. And then finally, why do we need citizen designers? And I'll get through that in two areas. One is the IT backlog. There is a massive IT backlog in the industry. And I want to first talk about scale, right? So IT organizations have really reached their scale for their digital initiatives. They have tremendous backlogs, and simply stated, the demand today is tremendous, and CIOs do not have any more capacity. They're only able to manage the status quo. As far as disruption, being digital is no longer enough in managing the changes to the business. What we're seeing is most organizations are optimizing existing businesses for today's environment rather than thinking about and preparing for the next turn or the next major change, leaving them exposed. Well, we've all experienced, this in the past 2 years. Let's look at how COVID has impacted our world. We're doing work remotely on a regular basis, and that's not just solution companies, but everyone is working remotely. So we need to have tools and better software systems to be able to support that. And I don't need to say this, but I'll say it anyway, but the backlog, right? There is so much new projects that are in the IT's backlog. They cannot solve that issue. They cannot get through that pipeline. So according to Gartner, 61% of the organizations either have plans or plan to have development initiatives, have plans for active citizen designer initiatives. So let's talk a little bit about the other side, and now for the business needs. So one of the things is we need to drive productivity in our business processes. So by 2024, at least 65% of the new applications that are going to be built with these high productivity tool sets. We need to operate more efficiently, right? When we operate more efficiently, we get to do more with less resources, and we're all in that situation. Improving the user experience. I talked about earlier about individuals of all ages using Amazon to purchase their items, doing e-learning. Everyone is used to this more modern day interface. Meeting strategic key targets. I'm kind of reminded of two clients that we work with, and they happen to be grant making organization. So each of these organizations received a large amount of federal funds that far exceeded the amounts they're accustomed to. And their job was to deliver these funds in the form of economic recovery for small businesses. So the need for them to deliver these grants to those that are in need had to be completed in a few months. So their challenge was to develop programs and policies and procedures, the business rules. They needed to implement a solution to capture, administer, and review and award grants. And then they had to prepare for compliance and protect the funds from misuse. So a lot of organizations are faced with those kinds of dramatic changes that are unexpected. So today, both of those customers are very successful implementing and now partly supporting on their own platform to manage these grants. So they're much better prepared than they have in the past. Going over to a few other things, eliminating dated methods, right? So we're often pulling data from multiple areas, using Excel to drive critical business. And we know that that simply is just not a good thing. The frustration among forward-thinking staff. Our staff is, much more technically savvy than we were 10 years ago. And there's a certain demand for these modern day users. And then consolidating data. We have to ease that burden of being able to pull data from multiple sources and be able to use that data for decision making, extend that data to further process. I still have just a few more statistics, but the one that really stands out for me is the third statistic, in that the number of active citizen developers will be 4 times the number of professional developers by 2023. So that's just a year away. And imagine the newfound capabilities and capacities we have to be able to build the solutions that we need. So what are the benefits of the citizen designer? They're both on the business and the information technology side. So addressing the shortage of developers in a cost-effective way, right? So now that we have the citizen designer capability, we don't need as many of those developers that we've had in the past. As you know, as many of us know, it's very difficult to find those developers. Accelerating development. Traditional coding is long and tedious. It takes a long time for developers to write the code, then debug the code. It's expensive. And many of the times we're just simply not meeting the business need. We're missing requirements and we're not getting them done correctly. So how do we do that? We do that through no-code, low-code platforms or platforms that we can put up applications very quick in short order. And then the third item is aligning business leaders with IT. Oftentimes we have business users communicating IT business requirements to these software platforms. Well, a lot of times, we have developers who don't understand the domain. We have business leaders that don't understand the technology of a system. So with these platforms, the citizen designer is heavily involved in the implementation process and very likely will be building parts of the solution. So therefore, because there's no gap, we get clear requirements and we're very much in compliant with what we need to be. And then finally, and probably the most obviously, these citizen designers and platforms help facilitate digital transformation. We no longer have to wait long periods of time to actually implement these types of solutions. So let's go ahead and talk about some of the best practices. There is a little bit of a difference in traditional software development and how to become really successful with that. One is to infuse a culture of citizen design. Management and executives have to embrace this sort of approach and have to get IT to buy into this sort of approach to developing software solutions. We have to reward early achievement, and we got to deliver right away. We also, one of the best practices is to leverage the agile approach. We have to manage tasks in organized ways, and we have to plan to reach our goals and milestones. And we have to build in small increments so that we can more easily visualize the system and continually improve the system. And agile is very good at providing that framework for us to work in. And then, of course, training and mentoring. There's all these training programs to learn how to use these platforms, how to become a citizen designer. So use these platforms to jumpstart and mentor and train or collaborate with your organization. There are some key pieces in the methodology where peer reviews and a strong focus on testing and validation is very much encouraged and very easy to do in these types of environments. And also, we still want to have the real subject matter experts, the people that are operating the business, to accept the system through their own testing. A little bit about platform capabilities. These are some of the capabilities we expect in a platform. Automation, being able to automate business processes and workflows. Validations, being able not just to validate that a date is a date and number is a number and text is text, but validating complex validations, like if you had a budget, to calculate that the budget doesn't exceed a certain threshold. And then calculations, being able to sum data across a multiple columns going down a row, but to do complex calculations to calculate, for example, indirect costs or direct costs or labor costs or service costs. Visibility is another key characteristic, right? We have data in this large repository, and we have different types of users that have different roles and needs to be able to get to the data. So visibility is a very important part. And last but not least, connectivity, not just to modern day systems, but to legacy systems, web services, ERPs, financial systems, and CRM systems. So I'll finish with the value of the platform. So improving process automation through no-code, low-code capable solutions. Rapid implementations, delivering capability in months rather than years. Evidence-based decision-making, be able to take all that data and have real-time insight through dashboards and reports. And then, of course, being able to have all the data we need in a single repository to have that compliance capability to comply real time and then be able to produce the final published compliance reports that you need, and then giving the organization the transparency that they need. And then finally, a citizen designer platform. These are some of the key constructs that a platform must have, right? It needs to be cloud-based. It needs to be on a cloud service provider. Now, if you're federal government, it should be a FedRAMP authorized environment so that the data is protected and it's, if you will, assessed and authorized by third-party assessors that are deemed strong for whether you're DOD, a civilian organization, or any other agency in the federal or state government. And then, of course, repositories have to have role-based access permission, different roles with different roles and permissions to be able to access the system, whether it's data, functions, features, or tasks. It needs to be role-based. Single sign-on to make sure that the user logged in is actually the user that we expect. A data repository that's extendable, not just to have the data tables, if you will, that are in the system, but being able to extend it. And then a whole suite of tools to do reports, to complete dashboards, to generate documents like agreements and forms, be able to query and capture data through forms, and then workflows to manage a process. So all of those capabilities, wrapping it into a nice, elegant, clean user interface where those user interface widgets and controls are already part of your solution. And then, of course, an internet browser that's supported with a lot of organizations. So this is the same slide, but with a little bit of color. So I'm going to go ahead and skip that one. And so one of the things I just wanted to leave you with these three things is these platforms have to be secure and ready for deployment right away. So because some of these platforms are FedRAMP moderate, there's no longer a long-awaited ATO or authority to operate process. You can basically access the system, build the solutions right away, and you can build as many as you want, and you're FedRAMP authorized. Easily customizable and extendable. We'll talk a little bit about that, about the capabilities of being able to extend, an existing platform and extending it out. The no-code, low-code capable platform, and how all of the solution that you built inherits all these new capabilities. All these capabilities that you do not have to code. So I'll finish off with just this last slide about accreditations. We're really proud of the investment we've made in all these different certifications, and I'm really proud that our UDPaaS product team is 100% Scrum certified Scrum Masters from the Scrum Alliance. There's many of us that are in process or already have our PMP certifications, but these are all certifications that really bring value and quality to our customers and our partners.
Good afternoon, all. Today, I'll present the art of possible followed by the demo build script. So, art of the possible is nothing but the visual, is like the cool features of the UDPaaS environment. You all must have heard about dashboards. So what exactly is a dashboard? Dashboard is just the visual representation of data in the system. And as you see here that it has been represented in different forms. For example, this is a pie chart, this is a donut chart, bar charts, and some 3D charts at the bottom. And they are like very customizable and highly interactive. By that, what I mean is, suppose let's take the example of this pie chart over here. So this is representing application by status. So what that shows is, like at the bottom, you'll see all the statuses, and the numbers that you see here is the number of application and respected status. By highly interactive, I mean, suppose if you don't want to see anything in the interview state, so all you need to do is just click here and you'll see that it is being removed from the chart. And you can always bring it back by clicking on the same button again. You can also drill down to the main record from the chart itself. So suppose if you want to see the list of applications and submitted status, so you click on submitted, it gives you the list, and then from there you can go to the respected application. And this is what the record looks like. So this was just a brief overview of what dashboard looks like. So let's move on to the next one, which is geomapping. So geomapping is a representation of the location of the user or the organization in the system. So this particular page here is representing the applicant address. So you see if I move on to different records, the location keeps changing depending on what the address is of that particular record. And you can always click on this open button to see more details on it. Now let's move on to the next one. That's the last but not the least. I'm moving on to the list view. So list view, as it said, is the representation of data in list. Anything that you see in the column header is the fields from the form itself. So you can add new columns, you can remove them, you can change them. You can do a lot more with the list view. By a lot more, I mean you can perform a batch update by just clicking on the this, like selecting the applications. You can either select all or you can just select the ones that you need to perform the action on. And on batch update, you can do multiple things like changing the status, adding the contact, updating the field values, and so on. You can also download files in bulk. You can also export the list view. List view can be exported in Excel form. You can also send the email in bulk, and you can also import through the list view itself. So you don't have to go into each record and make the changes. You can do everything from the list view itself. So this was just a brief about out of the possible, but you can do a lot more with it. So now I'll move on to building a demo script. By that, what I mean is like I'll build a form, a very functional form in front of you with no code, low code capability, and it would be functional as well. So when you receive a instance from the UDPaaS, this is what it looks like. It would be a blank canvas. This is the login page. As you can see that nothing has been configured here, and it is highly customizable. You can do anything with the login page, and I'll show you where you can do that from shortly. So once I log in, oops. So this is what it looks like, a blank canvas as mentioned before. This is the menu icon, and anything that you see here are the tools that will help you configure your form or your dashboards or your list views. That everything would be done from these tools that's presented here. And once I build the application, the support center application, you will see another section here which says application, and underneath that you will see support center. So to begin with the application, the first thing that one needs to do is associate the roles with that application. In this scenario, as it's a support center, so one role would be the ticket creator. Save it. And the next one would be internal staff. Creator is the one who's going to create the ticket, and internal staff, as the name says, would be someone internal. So what I was telling you before, that you can customize the login page, you can do that from going to the global settings, branding, login page, click on plus, and this is what the login page looks like. So whatever you do on the left hand side, you will see them changing on the right side, and you can make the changes accordingly as you want. And the next thing you should do once you receive the blank canvas is set the password policies, which you can do from going under security. And there are tons of settings here that you can enable or disable depending on your requirements for the passwords. So by that, let's move forward by actually creating the support center. I'm going to go to the tracking applications, click on plus, give it name, support center. My first level would be ticket. I'll save it. After saving it, I'm going to give the two roles that I created access to this particular module. So I'm just going to give them the application access as well as the admin access and save it. Once that's done, let's create the standard fields for the form. So these are the list of the standard fields that you see here. You can go on any one of them or like all of them, whatever, depending on the requirement that you need, and you just have to go in, you can change the caption and then hit save. For this one, the application name, I'm changing it to ticket subject. I'm also making it as mandatory. The next one, I'm going to do the type. I'm going to say ticket and save it. Let's do created date so that we know when it was created. And then let's do the owner. That would be the ticket owner. The person who is creating the ticket would be the ticket owner. And then the last one for the standard field would be the status. Before I move on to the custom fields, let's create the types first. The first one would be and the second one would be change request. And now let's create the statuses for the form. The first one is draft. So I will make this one as the default status so that whenever an application is created, it defaults to draft status. And I will make this available to both my types. The next status would be open. This is when they click on the submit button and it will move on to the open status. I will make it available to both types. And the last one would be resolved. Once that's done, let's move on back to the custom fields. So the first one that I'm going to create is the multiple line field. Let's give it the name as the description field. This one as mandatory. Save it. Then we can create the auto number field. So auto number will generate an auto number for the tickets as soon as it's created. And a unique number for each ticket. Let's start the number count from 1,000 and save it. The next one would be a drop down field. This is the severity field, severity as in the severity of the ticket, whether it's low, high, or medium. So I'm going to start with the default option that would be select one, separating the options by semicolon, high, medium, make this one mandatory as well. The next one would be an upload field where you can upload your attachments. You can also restrict the type of the file that you want for that upload field. I'm leaving it blank for now, so it's going to accept all types of file. The next one would be a multiple line field again, but for this one, I am going to enable the note entry mode. So note entry mode, what it does is it shows us the previous value in that particular field as well on the page. So we'll enable that from here and save it. Last field that I'm going to create is a date and time field. This field, I will be using it in the workflow to timestamp the date and time the ticket was opened. And I'm going to make this a read-only field so that no one can change that value when it's timestamped. So let's save it. All right, so I'm done creating the fields for the form. We have created the types, we have created the statuses. Now let's create the buttons. So what buttons does it? The first button is just a save draft button, which is available to all the statuses. It's to save anything that you have input on the application or the ticket. So next button would be a submit button. This is to, let's give it. It is available to drop status. available to draft status, and it will move the status to open. And the next one is close ticket, available on open, and it will move the status to resolve. All right, so that's done. So most of the things are done for the form. Let's just create a list view. So these are different properties that you can enable on list views. I personally don't like the open button, so I'm going to turn that off and enable row clickable. So that's what I'm doing here. And let's create the columns. You can add the columns by just clicking on the plus sign here, and then you can remove it by just clicking on the cross. So I'm going to add ticket type, ticket subject, status, ticket owner, and create a date. And you can also move the columns by just dragging them like that. So let's move this here. That looks good to me, and I'll click on save. So we are done creating the form. Now I'll move on to the workflows, but before that, let me just show you how the list view looks like. So this is the list view with all the columns that we have on, and we click on the plus sign to create a new ticket. I'll move on. I'll show you that right after creating a workflow. So in this workflow, what I'm going to do is I'll just send a notification to the ticket owner that the ticket has been opened. We will timestamp the date and time field that we created earlier. So this will trigger on draft status. And let's say, now let's create a task. This is just an acknowledgement task. Best practice to have this one here. Save it. Now the next one is to notify the owner. Acknowledgement. Message template to email from address. I'm here using a system variable here. From address. And the body would anything that you see like that within the @ are the variables that are being used here. So let's save that. And the last task is to time so which would be updating the custom field value. I'll select the field here, say open, and then I'm going to put in the syntax that will take the exact date and time the ticket was open. Now I will connect all my tasks with each other. And the workflow is all set, and I'll show you how that works as soon as we move on to the form. So remember in the beginning I said that you'll see an application column as soon as it's created. So this is what it looks like, and this is the support center. You can go from here, and now we'll create a new ticket. So this is what the form looks like with all the fields that we just created. These are the standard fields at the top, and these are the custom fields. So anything that you see here with an asterisk sign is a mandatory field, and if you try to submit the ticket without filling in these fields, you would not be able to, because the mandatory fields are not filled in. This is the validation that we are performing here. So suppose if it's a big form and you don't know where the error is coming from, so anything that you see here at the top has a hyperlink attached to it. You just click on it and it will take you to the respective field. So let's say this is ticket 1. And hit submit. As soon as you hit submit, you see that the status changed to open, and then there is a timestamp as well. So to see whether the workflow worked correctly, I'll show you the message queue, which is sending out the notification to the ticket owner that a ticket has been opened, and this is the number of the ticket. So this is the subject. So this is how the application or a module is created with no coding at all, and we have a functional instance right in front of us with no coding. So this is all I have to present today.
I'd like to open up the floor for any questions. If you have any questions, you guys should be able to unmute yourselves if you would like to ask any.
Great demo, guys. Just wanted to ask, within the platform, are there specific RBAC controls that can be implemented to separate very specific business units within an organization, maybe leveraging the platform?
Yeah, the answer is definitely yes. So it supports every user on the platform can be assigned a role, and each role can discern permissions based off of the data that they see. So it's row level data that they can see. For example, like program A can only see program A data, program B can only see program B data, but also role permission, as Rashida showed you, at the field level. So for every field, certain roles can have specific functions, visibility. And then finally, there are views to segregate task and workflow task, functions on the platform, as well as features on the platform.
Do you provide training? And if so, about how long does it take?
So with our platform, we provide what we call professional UDPaaS professional designer training track. And it's a series of class that an individual would take to learn how to build a solution from scratch. So building forms, as Rashida was doing, building workflows and reports and dashboards and things like that. All in, each of the sessions are about 2 hours, but most of the time with, I would say, about a day or maybe a second day of training, most users are very productive on the platform immediately.
Do I have to be a software developer to use your product?
Well, the answer is absolutely not. You do not need to know how to develop, code or software code. Essentially, you need to learn the mechanics of utilizing what we call our UDPaaS design tools to basically use forms to build your application. As you saw, Rashida was adding brand new fields with various data types and validations, and she quickly assembled a very simplistic sort of form. But even using more of the advanced technologies like e-signature, it's just a matter of enabling the e-signature credentials and being able to create documents and dragging signature lines onto those documents. So you do not need to be a developer.
Yeah, just was thinking, have you guys done any major integrations with this platform and maybe some other technologies, and how easy is it to create an integration?
Yeah, the typical implementation typically does have integrations. We've implemented numerous grant management systems, integrated to financial systems for making payments and interacting with accounts payable modules. We've integrated with CRM systems to exchange information. but also web services. So we have an integration to for federal agency, a service called sam.gov, where you can get opportunities loaded into the system. We also have integrations with Google Map, where this is a pre-built integration where we can validate addresses throughout the world.
Awesome. Thank you.
What kind of skills do I need to have to use your product?
Okay, so the way I would characterize that is really, in all honesty, is an appetite to build solutions. I mean, many of our most successful solution designers have played business process roles. You do have to have some level of technology savvy, but it's not a lot. And like I said, we find, like I said, grant managers, account managers, finance analysts have been very productive with the product.
Okay, I think that's all the questions. So thank you all for attending. Connect with us on social media. We are on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter. A copy of the slides will be sent out shortly after the webinar, along with the survey. Any feedback you provide will be greatly appreciated. Thank you and have a great day.